Get social with us. Follow us on Instagram at Goodtaste TV.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Good Taste podcast, Good Taste for the Soul. So glad you're with us today. I can think of one thing that is absolutely always good for my soul, and that's Mexican food. If you too love Mexican food, whether it's interior or Tex-Mex, I think you're going to love today's show. Our guest is an expert on the topic. In fact, the media call her the Enchilada Queen. Even the New York Times has noticed more than once. In the midst of all her success, she even took a bullet to the stomach that nearly took her life, but she moved on. We'll talk to her about that too. But first, we're going to talk to her about these famous enchiladas, and she's even going to share a very important secret in making enchiladas at home. Sylvia Casares, welcome to Good Taste.
Thank you. I'm so glad, so happy you included me
Well,
in your.
I know a lot of people are already very familiar with Sylvia's Enchilada Kitchens, 2 locations in Houston. And a lot of people know you nationwide because the New York Times is giving you a nod a time or two as well. And
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you how in the world you got the title, the Enchilada Queen. You didn't name yourself that, right?
Oh no, absolutely not. I think it just came about because, first of all, when I started my very first little bitty restaurant, it had another name that was very forgettable, and I had a almost an invisible location and a forgettable name. So I had to kind of reinvent myself. And in the process, I decided to name the restaurant after what I was known for in my own little teeny world. And so I gave it my name, Sylvia's Enchilada Kitchen. And because it seemed to me like the majority of restaurants were only emphasizing their fajitas, and enchiladas were an afterthought. But for me, enchiladas were the main thing I focused on, and I did them different and special, made to order, and so that's where I went. And through the years, I ended up with through 20. I have 20 varieties. 10 are north of the border and 10 are south of the border. Yeah. So along the way, food writers took an interest in the emphasis and the fact that there was a north and the south. I kind of drew a line in the sand there and tried to explain the difference. So, I kind of think of myself as an enchilada ambassador.
But the media called you the Enchilada Queen,
Exactly.
right?
Yes. I think it just came because of my focus and the variety and the quality of them.
Yeah,
And and
that's
then eventually, around that time, I also created the 8 different the culinary tour ones, the sampler platters, that we tasted and looked at in the cooking segment. And so it's just all about enchiladas here. And so
well, in
I guess
Houston,
from ambassador to queen, you
yeah,
know.
it's quite a title, and you clearly live up to it. Houstonians absolutely love your enchilada. Let's talk a little bit about the enchiladas because everyone that goes to your restaurant, it's all about the food. There's fabulous fajitas. There's
Yeah.
a number of wonderful things. The margaritas are incredibly popular. But it's those enchiladas that people come back time and time again. And so let's talk about the secret. And then we've got you in the kitchen and we'll show viewers exactly how it's done. But the secret is in the prep ahead of time of those tortillas, right?
When enchiladas were created, they decided to marinate the tortilla in a chili sauce. And so that requires taking a dried chile, removing the stem, the seeds, boiling it, grinding it, and making the sauce, and then dipping each and every corn tortilla in that sauce, and then allowing the sauce to soak into the tortilla, and then the tortilla is passed through hot oil, to make it pliable, and then you fill it, roll it, sauce it, and bake it. Not microwave it, not put it in a broiler, but actually bake it so the enchilada is heated through and through. So each step is pretty labor intensive, but it delivers, an enchilada that is perfect to your table, and it just takes a lot extra steps.
Okay, let's take everybody in the kitchen right now and show them. And after that, I want to hear about the night you were shot. We are back in the kitchen with Sylvia Casares, the Enchilada Queen, sharing some amazing tips and tricks of the trade when it comes to really authentic Tex-Mex, right?
Exactly, exactly. Home style, the way
Yeah.
the way cooks cooked at home 50 or 100 years ago,
Yeah.
and even before that.
And that's why everything always tasted so good, and we remember it generations later.
We do. Our palates memorize flavors.
Yes.
And so when you put something in your mouth, you remember you're in your childhood eating.
Yes, and the memories come back too.
Uh-huh.
It's a beautiful
Yes.
thing. Okay, we're working with tortillas today, the ultimate goal being the enchilada, right?
Exactly, exactly. So here at Sylvia's, we prepare enchiladas the way they were originally designed centuries ago. So we take the ancient chile, and this one is called chile guajillo. And the larger the chile, the less the heat. So this is not a
Okay.
spicy chile. It's got a little flavor, and it's got a ton of color, but it does,
Yeah.
So we start off, we get these chiles, and we have to open them up, and we have to remove the seeds. So for this recipe, to make enchiladas for your home, if you're gonna do from like the cookbook,
Right.
so away they go, and you do that 5 times. And so I've already done it, and I took the 5 chiles that have been cleaned, and I boiled them in about 2.5 cups of water, and now I'm going to puree them because I'm going to begin to make the sauce that we dip every corn tortilla in for each and every enchilada here.
And it makes all the difference in the world
it
in the
does.
final product.
It's
And not
pretty
many
lab-
places do this.
No, it's labor intensive to have to take the stems off, open them up, remove the seeds, cook them, puree them, and you're going to watch the process now. So here we go. Just a couple of minutes. So under a minute, because you want to make sure you grind every bit of chile in there. And then we're going to take this chile sauce. And what's going to happen is that this sauce is actually a mother sauce in this restaurant. So we use it to spice each and every corn tortilla for every enchilada that we serve. But also, it also goes in some of our other remarkable, much written about recipes. So it all starts with the ancient chile.
And they're a nice earthy flavor, I
It's
think.
earthy,
They're
yes.
not like spicy, crazy hot. It's a nice flavor.
But it delivers a wonderful flavor. So the next step that we have to do is we have to, and again, this is a laborious but much needed step. What I'm going to do here is there's a part of the chile that absolutely will not liquefy, so we have to separate it. We don't want it in our recipes, and so it stays behind in the strainer. I make sure that I get every bit of flavor, so I squish really good right here. And so I could have pureed it for another minute, and I still would end up with pretty much the
You're
same
still
amount.
going to have a little bit of the peels,
Yeah, it just absolutely will not. Okay, so now we have this sauce that will flavor each and every corn tortilla. So that's the first thing you cut into. Well, you do your fork hits the sauce, but then the next thing is the tortilla, so it's going to deliver flavor.
Yeah.
All right, so it's ready to go. We typically work with a cold sauce. This one is a little warm, so I'm going to go ahead and go to my cold one. So then the next step is we take a corn tortilla and we dip it in the sauce. And so this is done, again, to each and every corn tortilla served in this restaurant.
And you scrape off the excess.
Yeah, we have to scrape off the excess. So, and then we put them in a giant Tupperware. We store them in the refrigerator overnight. And in the morning, this has absorbed, so it's like a marinade. It has absorbed into the enchilada. And so this is a result.
Yeah, and side by side, you can tell a little better. It
Mm-hmm.
just picks up a little bit of the flavor, a lot of the flavor actually once you cook it, but
Right. So you can let them sit at least for a couple of hours.
stacked directly on top of one another.
Right,
Okay.
stacked directly, and they'll do good. So I like to say that our enchiladas, our corn tortillas, are handled 3 times, as you can see here with the 3 plates. The last step is to take this corn tortilla that has been marinated all night, and in the morning when we get here, you pass the corn tortilla through the hot oil. And what happens then, well, you do add a little flavor. It's not a frying, it's just a pass-through. So it makes the tortilla be able to be rolled because this is just corn, flour, and water. So it breaks real easily.
Right, right. And I'm curious to see you do this because there really is, I think, an art to doing this well. The oil needs to be a certain temperature. You don't want to leave it in there too long, right? I mean,
Right,
I've messed up more
exactly.
tortillas than I can tell you.
Yes, unfortunately that does happen. And
Yeah.
it might even happen to me today.
That's okay. Enchilada Queen, I love it.
Yeah, I might mess one up, but nobody, as long as nobody ends up in the emergency room.
We're good.
We're good.
We're good.
Yes. Yeah, that's my mantra. But I wanted to say too that one of the core beliefs of my cooking and recipe development is that shortcuts will cost you flavor. So I don't like to cut corners, and I like to work with the most original flavors, and that way you're going to make sure that it's all going to be. I'm going to go ahead and dip this little guy here, and let's just see what happens to.
Okay.
All right. Hopefully it's. Let me check the temperature.
On the oil temp, are you just looking for a film to form on top, or?
Well, this is what we typically do in the restaurant. We go like this.
And if it
that's
sizzles
good.
a little bit?
Yeah, that's the way the home cooks do
Okay.
it. We just want it to be a little sizzly. So I'm going to go ahead and drop it in there. And again, it's just a pass-through. We're not frying them, but it makes the tortilla
Pliable.
Yeah, pliable, so it won't break.
And
of course,
use a good amount of oil. You want it to where it covers
you're
them,
gonna
right?
put and you're gonna have a bunch of it left over. I put maybe a little bit more than I needed to. So now we're ready to make a cheese enchilada, which is one of the most iconic enchiladas
Absolutely.
of Texas. And so we've seasoned our tortillas, and I'm gonna go ahead and work with a cold one. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill them with the cheese. We use cheddar, natural cheddar. And then we roll them, of course. Let's see, there you go. What makes it a Texas-style enchilada is the topping.
Gravy.
Yes, the chili gravy. So the chili gravy is something that was created in Texas probably 100 years ago or maybe more. And so it's a beef-based sauce, and it is our signature sauce. Every successful restaurant has to do one thing better than anybody else, and I would say that our chili gravy and, of course, overall our enchiladas are what has set us apart. I'm just going to sauce them up like this, and what we do, we typically do not microwave them or anything like that. We bake them because I want the enchilada to be heated through. Everything is cooked, but I want the enchilada to be completely heated through.
Yes.
And not just heated from the top.
You want the cheese all melted inside as well.
Yes, I want everything to be proper temperature. As I mentioned to you earlier, this is the one of the items that I have recently bottled.
Yes, and I have to tell you, I took one of those home, and luckily, I think I told you, I had cheese and I had corn tortillas in the fridge, and cilantro and onions. I was very excited. I didn't have to go to the store. And used your sauce. I had doubts because I think a lot of us know of sauces and jars and cans that we've bought and thrown in the trash. This is amazing. It really is. It's like I'm back in the restaurant. It is absolutely fabulous. And you can add beef to it if you want ground beef in there or tenderloin, whatever, but you don't need to. It has a really hearty, rich flavor.
It's a
very
beef-based
good.
sauce. It's a beef-based sauce.
Yeah.
And it also works great as a sauce to make a carne guisada or pork guisado. So, and actually it's very, very similar to our pork guisado that we use for tamales here.
Yeah.
So
it's
that's
wonderful. And you can get it online. We'll put a link up.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I think we need to try it.
Oh, absolutely. Cheers.
Cheers. So good. You're very inspiring to me because we're similar in age, right?
Yes.
And I'm taking this podcast is a new adventure, and it is like its own starting a new business.
Right.
Even though we have the TV show, you're doing the same thing. You've got these wonderful sauces, and I'll show better pictures than the ones I have at my house. But I love your adventurous spirit because you're starting a new business again too.
Yes, I know. So I'll be 71, or I'll be 72 shortly in a couple of months.
It's just a number, Sylvia.
It's just a number. Age is only a number. It's about
I
energy.
agree.
It's all about energy, and I got tons of energy. But yeah, I've been thinking about it for the longest time, and then one day I got a call from someone I used to work with, and he mentioned it to me. Well, should we do it? And I had actually applied with HEB and had not had in Quest for the Best and had not been accepted. or had not been. So I kind of just put it in the back burner, but it was always there. And then my ex colleague called, and I said, and I really like him, and he's retirement age and all that. I said, hey, let's go for it. So we ventured out, and we have the signature sauce, which is our chili gravy, and then the table salsa, which I know there's hundreds of them in the market, but mine is different.
Now, these are
And
great. A red and
yes,
a green.
yeah, red and a green. And then, of course, the gravy, which is the gravy is the most unique of the three. There is nothing even similar on to it on the market, and it's packed with flavor, and it's
It's
proven to
amazing.
be.
And for people who are in, we'll talk to you multiple times, and one of these days we'll talk about Tex-Mex and the history thereof. But for enchiladas, the gravy is crucial, right?
Oh,
And
it's the first thing that you taste. Yeah, it's about the gravy. It's about the sauce.
yeah,
All enchiladas is about the sauce primarily, and then you get into the second layer, which is the tortilla, and then the third is the filling. So first
and let,
impression, of course, is the sauce, and so
well, and I know it took you months to develop it because translating what's wonderful in the restaurant into something you can put in a jar was challenging, but you
it
did it.
was it was the most uh, challenging thing I've done as far as a formulation. It took me 8 months, probably around 8 months of daily trial and error of trying to get it, um, formulated to where it met food safety standards and it tasted very similar to what we have here. Not exactly because I can't do the process that I do here in a plant. I mean, it's just not possible. So,
But it's amazing. I've made enchiladas. The first jar I ever bought, I came home that night and made enchiladas with it, and it saves you so much time. And it's like the sauce to me is always the thing that can really throw the enchilada off if it's not just
oh,
right.
yeah.
And you don't have to worry about that with the sauce. It's really wonderful. But I wanted to talk a little bit about your personal story. You know, in working with people in all walks of life, is everyone has a story, and every successful person I've ever met and interviewed has an incredible backstory. You are one of those people. You survived when I first met you. This has probably been about 10 years ago. You were dating a gentleman, you were in a relationship with someone who ended up shooting you.
Yes, yes,
Are you okay
sadly.
talking about that?
Yes. Well, he was actually the general manager of this restaurant, so Woodway Restaurant, and it just was not working for the restaurant. And so I had to terminate him, and so that is when that happened. So it was personal mixed with business, I guess, is the reason
Yeah.
for the shooting. As I look back on it now, I kind of have gotten a different perspective, but it was pretty traumatic. I could never have imagined. I remember when I started dating him, they always say, watch how they treat their mother and their sisters, and you'll know the kind of person they are. Well, he was a very good son and an excellent brother in my opinion. What I had
Yeah.
observed, and I knew his family, and so it was so shocking. It was like the most shocking thing. It was almost like could have been a drive-by. I was that shocked. Drive-by shooting. I mean, I never expected it. Didn't know he had a gun, and so
Take us back to the day or the night this happened. Where were you?
well, um, he at the time. Well, actually, I had terminated him as general manager about 3 months before, and he was 59 years old, as was I. We had started the Woodway restaurant. He was the general manager, and we had started it together, and it just became unmanageable. It just was not working. So I had to make the difficult decision. So he came back about 3 months later and said that he couldn't find a job, and could he at least help me with my food truck and with catering. And I said, okay, you can do that, which didn't require him being in the restaurant. And so I guess he did that for about 6 weeks, and then there started to be problems. And I had told him if I had any more problems, we couldn't work together. So that evening, he kind of crossed a line. He was kind of, you know, acting unprofessionally. And so I just said, look, we can't work together anymore. And he became belligerent. And I had made up my mind I was on a pretty strong spiritual journey. And I had made up my mind that nobody was going to steal my peace, and that I wasn't going to let myself get carried away or, made to go somewhere I didn't want to go. So I stayed very calm. They never raised my voice. I didn't reciprocate. I just stayed very calm and no emotion. And so he said, well, give me a ride. I need to get to my vehicle. He was driving my company van. So we got in my car, and as I closed the door, and he got in a second or two after me. And then all of a sudden I hear this explosion, and I feel the searing pain in my abdomen, my stomach. And I realized I had just been shot. I never saw the gun. There was no arguing. There was no screaming. There was no, there had been words, but more on his side than mine, really. And I turned and I saw the gun going across the console of the car. And the first words out of my mouth was, oh my gosh, why did you shoot me? I mean, it was like out of the blue. The first thought I had was, is this how I'm going to die? And it was so shocking. We wonder, are we going to live to be 100 or,
Right.
And so then the next thing I thought was, this is a really stupid way to die. After all this work,
After all this work.
I'm going to be finished here. It was. And then the next thought was, and these are split seconds, right? Oh, I'm not going to die here. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to fight like heck. And so that's just sort of what happened. I got out of the car. I don't know why. I think at that point I'm in a state of shock, and I'm going to try to get to a phone, which I had a phone with me.
Where were you shot?
It was at my house.
But
It
in
was
the
at my house.
stomach or?
Yeah, in the stomach. Right. It went through my, a little bit on the side, and it crossed through my entire abdomen and exited just above my pelvic bone and then lodged in my thigh. So, but it only hit my colon in 3 spots, and that in itself was a miracle, because there's
Wow.
so many places to just a slightly different angle, and or even, and it was a 22 caliber, and later I read that a 22 caliber, if it hits bone, it will go back, ricochet, and then it tears you up, and usually people don't survive that.
Oh
So
man.
because
So
then it starts like
moving, doing
ricocheting.
damage inside.
Yes, really damaging.
So
But it
when
was
he shot you, you were at the house. I'm trying to see.
yeah. I was out in the carport, I guess, in my
Did,
carport. Yeah.
did
And
you
so
scream?
I rolled out of the car, and
Ah,
I guess I was thinking I was going to go in the house and get the phone. I don't know what I was thinking. And he got out of the car and he went back into the house, and I followed him crawling, and I heard him at the kitchen, like washing his hands, I think. And I kept asking him to please call 911, because I guess in the back of my mind, I couldn't believe that he had done that. It still was just not comprehensible. I mean, it was this was a nightmare. And the last thing I said was, in the name of God, please think of your mother and your children. I don't want to die. Please call 911. And he just passed by me and threw a dish towel at me and left me in my car, took my car and my cell phone. So it was
whoa.
it was pretty horrible, but I knew that I had to get help and stay calm. And so that's what I did. Luckily for me, I had a landline. So I just got myself to her phone and called 911. The interesting thing was that I dialed it 3 times and I couldn't get through. So I thought, well, there's probably a problem with 911. So then I called the Woodway restaurant, and the manager answered, and I said, Michael just shot me in the stomach. Please call 911. Let me give you my address. I think later on I realized that I was so nervous that I misdialed it. They did come.
Wow.
And so they took me to Memorial Hermann, which is the critical care. I guess they have the best one in the city. And so the next thing I remember is just waking up in the surgical unit and answering questions. And I kept telling them I'm blood type O. I don't know. I guess I thought they didn't have any way of knowing.
They needed to know that.
Yeah, I thought if I need blood, they don't need to waste any time finding out. It's funny. Interestingly enough, and I really believe the Holy Spirit was like had taken over because I was so calm and actually one of the surgeons came by to see me a couple of days later and he said that I was stoic. He said you were so calm,
Wow.
unbelievably calm. So
Wow.
anyway, so yeah, and so the other interesting thing as I look back on it now, we talk about forgiveness. So it was so shocking. The next morning, I don't know, mid-morning, I wake up and there's a policeman there and a detective to ask me a ton of questions. And he asked me, well, what happened? Or, I don't know. And I think I said, well, I think he just had a breakdown. I don't understand it because I never knew that a violent, threatening side of him. I mean, it was just out of the blue in my mind anyway. I never saw any kind of hint where I should be fearful. And, but since I was on this strong spiritual journey, and it surprises a lot of people. It's amazing how many people are really surprised, not even surprised, shocked. But as I was explaining to somebody the other day, I said, well, it's part of our faith. And it's even in the Lord's Prayer, you know, it's one of the phrases, I guess, or, of the Lord's Prayer. And so I just said, I forgive him. And I don't know why he did it, but that's his business. And,
You said that at that point in the
I told him,
hospital?
yes, in the hospital. Yes. I told the detective that I forgave him. Yeah. I said, I don't understand why he did it, but I forgive him. And it wasn't a question, oh, this is hard to do or why, I don't think I can do this. I just did. And I'm telling you, it was the Holy Spirit that was kind of in control, or I was really listening to the Holy Spirit. I'd been through some very difficult times business wise with the restaurant and other things that had happened. And so, I had no other choice but to lean very hard on my faith. And so I think that was a huge part of my being able to heal and roll on. And,
Yeah.
because I think what happens then, you let it go and you're able to look forward into the future
Right.
and you throw it in the back seat and you're on. And that's what I did. And my goal when I started was my goal. I heard some ministers say that you have to have a childlike faith, you know, just a childlike faith. So like almost take everything at face value. And I felt like forgiveness was a huge part of it, a very big part of it. And it's hard because we also have free will. So
But
um,
you forgave him. That
I did, I did. And afterwards, there was a time or two when I did experience a little bit of anger toward him, but I think that's kind of normal. At the time, I didn't. You know what? The other thing too, I was so glad to be alive.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and so I was being grateful for God sparing my life rather than, oh, woe is me and why did this happen, and feeling sorry for myself. I was just, oh God, I made it, because my goal was to make it.
Yeah.
And
Like this is no way to die. I think
this
that's
is a
such an
stupid way to
interesting
die after all this work, because I realized I'd never had any fun. All I did was work, always taking care of somebody,
Yeah.
and needing to produce the income to take care of my responsibilities.
Well, speaking of that person, just for closure on that horrible time, he was arrested and he served time, right?
Yes, yes, he really actually got I think a really light sentence. Um, and he got 4 years.
Hmm.
Which yeah, he got 4 years, so he served it and he's out. And I don't know.
And that's
He's
the
not. I
past.
don't. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wish him
That's the
well.
past, and you have definitely moved on.
My whole life has kind of all come together, and I'm having a blast. And I don't know where I'm going to end up, but I'm having fun, and I believe the products that I have developed will make people's lives better.
Oh,
Just like my
I
food has.
can attest to that.
I
Having
do
tried that
believe.
enchilada gravy.
I've always believed that I wanted to provide value when people came to my restaurant to eat. I wanted people to have fun. bring them joy and provide value when they pay their bill. And that's always been because that's how I want to feel when I go eat out. I want to feel like it was a fair trade, you know. So,
I think you would absolutely accomplish that. And we'll put information up so viewers, you can actually order these wonderful, the red salsa, the green salsa, and the enchilada gravy online, or pop into a restaurant and
yeah,
get them there. And we're going to have you back time and time again because Tex-Mex is everyone's favorite, right? Um,
absolutely. It is worldwide. It's more uh, popular than Mexican, interior of Mexico cooking.
yeah.
It's America's. Well, I call it the original fusion food because I think it was created probably around when the American settlers or the European settlers came to Texas, which was Mexico, and the two ingredients and cooking styles and everything blended, and we came up with this wonderfully flavorful, Americana
Yeah.
style Mexican food. Kind of gotten a bad name because so much of what people eat is commercially prepared and maybe not with as much care as I have put into it.
Oh, it's like any of us Texans, I'm sure we all share the same story. Whenever we travel to other parts of the state, or not the state necessarily, sometimes, but parts of the states or out of the states, the first food we crave when we come home is Mexican food,
It's
really
true.
done
People
well.
will stop here on their way home from the airport.
I
Their
believe it.
luggage is still in the car, and they will, even when they go to Mexico,
Yeah.
on their way home from their vacation in Mexico, they will come here. It is so funny. I've seen it for 25 years. People have told me that because
Yep.
there's nothing
I
like
believe
it.
it. I
There's
believe it. There's
nothing like
nothing
it.
like it. And there's
Right.
nothing like your enchiladas at Sylvia's. Sylvia, thank you so much. We will
Oh,
have you back because we love cooking with you and our viewers love hearing from you, the expert tips that you share.
I will be, just give me a call. I'm always around
I will do it. Your story
when
is
I'm
so
not selling my
inspiring.
salsas.
And when we're
Thank you,
not buying
Tanji.
them,
Huh?
thank you so much,
Bye
Sylvia.
bye.
Sylvia Casares' story has always inspired me. When you go to her restaurant, you'll likely meet her and you'll see that she is as beautiful on the inside as she is on the outside. And of course, her enchiladas truly are delicious. Can you imagine forgiving the guy that shot you? We'll hear more from Sylvia and have some fun cooking segments with her along the way. This was my third time to interview Sylvia over the years, but my first time to hear about her spiritual journey. The more people I talk to, the more I discover everyone is on a journey. I hope this podcast encourages you to appreciate your journey, maybe to be more observant of it, and I hope it inspires you to learn from other adventures. We are all in this beautiful life together. Thanks so much for watching.
Get social with us. Follow us on Instagram at Goodtaste TV.